at-home learning series for literacy. Today's lesson is for all our 7th graders out there, though anyone is welcome to join in. This lesson is the first in this week's series. My name is Mrs. Alley, and I'm a 7th grade teacher in Tennessee schools. I'm so excited to be your teacher for this lesson. Welcome to my virtual classroom. If you didn't see our previous lessons, you can find them online at www.tn.gov/education. You can still tune into today's lessons if you haven't seen any of our others. Today, we will be learning about love. Before we get started, to participate fully in our lesson today, you will need a few things: a pencil, some paper, and a hard surface to write on. Let's get started. Today we will be using the poem Annabel Lee by Edgar Allan Poe to discuss Poe's love for his wife with a focus on understanding the structure of the poem and how to write one on your own. Well, spring is in the air, right? Do you know what usually blossoms or blooms in the spring? Some may say flowers, leaves, but that's not exactly what I'm looking for. How about if I ask this way? What emotion do we usually think of in the springtime? I'll give you a hint. It happens in February, and there's usually candy involved. Yes, love. Today, our goal is to read a poem by Edgar Allan Poe and begin to understand what it's about. We will begin with me reading the poem, and then there will be time for us to reread it and work on understanding the poem. We will work together on that. Finally, I will assign an independent practice that you can complete after the video ends. Let's get started. So as I said, today we're going to read a poem about love. This poem is by Edgar Allan Poe. And if you know anything about Edgar Allan Poe, then you'll know that when you usually think of his name, you don't think of love. So while this is a love poem, it does have a dark side. Let's just read through the poem the first time to just get a feeling for what it's about. Ready? Annabel Lee by Edgar Allan Poe. It was many and many a year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, that a maiden there lived whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden, she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. She was a child, and I was a child in this kingdom by the sea. But we loved with a love that was more than love, I and my Annabel Lee. With a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. And this was the reason that long ago, in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of a cloud by night, chilling my Annabel Lee in this kingdom by the sea. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, went envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know in this kingdom by the sea, that the wind came out of a cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we. And neither the angels in heaven above nor the demons down under the sea can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee, in her sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the side of the sea. Wow. Well, we definitely know it's a love poem, don't we? Poe mentions the word love over and over. Did you see where the poem turns kind of dark, though? Let's reread it a few lines at a time and think about what the poem is saying. Let's get ready for some guided practice. Take out that pencil and piece of paper. I've got mine ready. As we discuss this poem, it would probably be a good idea to take some notes. We'll be talking about this poem again in the next lesson as well. Let's take a look at the first two lines of the poem. It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea. What genre or type of story does this poem remind you of? Think back to when you were younger and you read stories like Cinderella. Yes, it reminds me of a fairy tale. You know, kind of like Once Upon a Time in a Kingdom Far, Far Away. Why in the world would Poe want to start his story of the woman that he loves so much with a fairy tale beginning? I agree. When I think of a fairy tale, I think of things like a prince finding his princess and falling into love like no one ever has before. So, why do you think Poe has chosen to start his love poem like a fairy tale? You got it. He wants to show us that the love between he and Annabel Lee was just like the love you find in fairy tales. Great job. Now let's reread the final line in the first stanza. And this maiden, she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. First, let's take a look at the word maiden. When you think of a maiden, do you think of an older or younger lady? Yes, indeed. A maiden is a younger woman. And here's the key, usually a younger woman that is unmarried. So, were the poet and Annabel Lee married? Probably not. But according to the poet, Annabel Lee had one job. What was it? Yes, to be loved by and love the poet. I know it doesn't pay well, but how romantic, right? So now on your piece of paper and with your pencil, I'd like you to write the words stanza 1. Then, in just a line or two, try to write a summary of the first stanza based on what we just talked about. Great job. All right, so here's what I wrote. Yours doesn't have to match mine exactly. There's a young man and woman so in love that it feels like a fairy tale. In fact, their only job is to love each other. Great job. Let's go on to stanza 2. She was a child and I was a child in this kingdom by the sea. But we loved with a love that was more than love, I and my Annabel Lee. With a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. Wait a minute, Poe uses the word child to describe both himself and Annabel Lee. Does that mean they were out for a walk in their baby carriages one day and they saw each other and now they're dating? Of course not. Why do you think that Poe chose to use the word child to describe both of them? That sounds better, doesn't it? They were probably pretty young. In fact, remember what we said about a maiden. It kind of sounds like they were teenagers. If that's so, do you think teenagers feel love very passionately? Yeah, I think so too. Anyway, let's go to the last two lines of this stanza. I'll read them again. With a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. Wow, There are a couple of vocabulary words we have to think about here. The first one, I'll bet you can figure out using context clues. That word is serifs. When I'm using context clues to figure out a word, I always look before and after the word that I'm trying to figure out. The word before is winged, or winged. Same thing, right? And the words after are of heaven. So, what do you think a serif is? Of course, a serif is an angel. The other word that I need to figure out is coveted. This time, I'll just tell you what coveted means. Envied. So let me reread the last two lines and you tell me what Poe is saying. With a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. Yep, even the angels envied the love that Poe and Annabel Lee had. So again, write a really quick summary of this stanza based on what we just talked about. So here's what I wrote for this stanza. Poe and Annabel Lee were teenagers. They had such a strong love that even the angels in heaven envied them. Awesome job. Keep up the great work. Let's go on to the next two stanzas. And this was the reason that, long ago, in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of a cloud by night, chilling my Annabel Lee. In this kingdom by the sea. Let's look at the last two lines first. A wind blew out of a cloud by night, chilling my Annabel Lee. In this kingdom by the sea. So what do you think happened here? I think the word that gives me the most problem here is chilling. It says that a wind blew out of a cloud and chilled her. So right now, I'm thinking it must have made her cold. Why did the wind blow out of the clouds and make her cold? Let's take a look at the first two lines. And this was the reason that long ago, in this kingdom by the sea. What was this reason? Go back and reread your summary of the last stanza and see if you can find a reason a wind might come out of the clouds and chill Annabel Lee. Good. The angels were so jealous of their love that they allowed a wind to come down and make Annabel Lee cold. But wait, there's more. Listen to what happens next. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, went envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know, in this kingdom by the sea, that the wind came out of a cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. Whoa, that got dark quick, didn't it? We were right about the angels being jealous. What do you think is meant by a chill or chilling? Yes, it very well could be a real wind, and then the cold air or wind caused Annabel Lee to catch a cold. Obviously then, what does the cold cause her to do? Yes, unfortunately, she dies. But who does Poe blame for her death? Wow, can you believe it? He blames the angels in heaven. We'll talk a little more in our next lesson about why Poe would blame the angels. But for now, let's write another summary. This time, make sure that you focus on how she died. Go ahead and get started. I just need a couple of lines. Great job. Here's what I wrote. Make sure you compare what you wrote to my answer. I simply said, a wind came from the angels that made Annabel Lee catch a cold and die. The wind was sent because the angels were jealous of Poe and Annabel Lee. All right, 2 more stanzas to go. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we. And neither the angels in heaven above, nor the demons down under the sea, can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee. Aw, I don't know if I want to cry or hug someone. Let's start with the first 3 lines of this stanza. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we. Older and wiser. Who do you think Poe is referring to here? Yes, I believe it to be the angels. My guess is that they are both wiser and older than either Poe or Annabel Lee. Now, here is the really cool part of the poem, though. Listen to the rest again. And neither the angels in heaven above, nor the demons down under the sea, can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee. There's an important word here that we need to try to figure out. That is dissever. I want to show you how to tear words apart to figure them out. It's just another strategy that you can use. This time, I know that there is a prefix in this word. The prefix is dis. That means the root word is sever. I also know that sever means to cut, and dis basically means the root word is the opposite of its meaning. In this case, if sever means cut and dis means the opposite, then dissever means to not cut. With all of that, let's read the lines with the word in it again. And neither the angels in heaven above, nor the demons down under the sea, can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams. Wow, what a difference a word makes, huh? That's why it's so important to take the time to use strategies to figure out the meaning of words instead of just skipping over them. Now that we know what dissever means, what does Poe say angels or demons can never do? You got it. Their souls will never be separated, and their love will go on forever. Romantic, huh? Just like a fairy tale. Well, this wouldn't be Poe without a bit of a dark twist. Check out these last lines. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee. In her sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the side of the sea. Uh-oh, one more vocabulary word, but I think you got it this time. Use context clues to figure out the basic meaning of sepulture. Yeah, it's basically another word for tomb. So Poe says he'll never forget her because every time the moon shines, he thinks of her. How does he think of her, though? Yes, he thinks of her in the tomb. We'll talk about this more in our next lesson as well. For now, go ahead and summarize this final part of the poem. Here's what I said. No one can ever make Poe forget about Annabel Lee. He will think of her every time the moon shines. He will think of her lying in her tomb. Go ahead and compare yours to mine. Whew! Poe has an interesting way of showing love, doesn't he? You did a great job following along today. Thank you for all of your hard work. Keep your notes because we'll be using them next time to dive a little more deeply into the poem since we have the basic meaning now. Finally, today I'm going to ask you to do just a little more work for me before we meet again. I'd like you to think about a hobby that you simply love to do. It can even be playing a video game. Be specific. Watching TV. Again, think about a specific TV show. It can be cooking. Be specific about the dish that you enjoy cooking. Or it could even be sleeping. Just make sure that you're honest. Really think about a hobby or something that you absolutely love to do and feel passionately about. Once you've got that part figured out, I want you to, in a paragraph, describe why you love that thing so much. So take some time to, once you pick your hobby or the thing that you love to do, to really think about why do you love it so much? Then be sure to have it ready for our next lesson because we're going to poetize it in a love poem. So I want to give you about 2 minutes to jot down a list of 2 or 3 things that you love to do before we narrow it down to 1. So do that now on your paper where we've been making our summaries, 2 or 3 things that you love to do. Do you have your list? Let me share some of the things I added to mine. I love to teach. I love being around my students and spending time with them. And it's really something that I feel very passionately about. I also love to read. It's definitely one of my hobbies. I love making puzzles, and I love spending time with my family. What do you have on your list? Great. Now I want you to take a look at the list that you've made, and I want you to circle the one that you feel the most passion for, the one that you enjoy doing the most, if you could just pick one thing. Go ahead and circle it. What did you circle? I circled spending time with my family. That's the most important for me. So remember, you're going to go ahead and keep this, and we're going to use it in our next lesson when we continue talking about Edgar Allan Poe's Annabel Lee. I enjoyed working on reading and understanding Annabel Lee with you today. Thank you for inviting me into your home. I look forward to seeing you in our next lesson in Tennessee's At Home Learning Series. Bye!